in
Good morning. Ronke will soon start to stream to.
meeting is now streaming on
It's now
Facebook.
streaming. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We're just waiting for Mr. Debili to share his screen. I guess he's just getting ready. So, as you know, I am LSK. This is Health Boxes, and we're having this discussion on when to talk to your children about sex. Now, the reason why I've picked this conversation is twofold. I have Dr. Ann Olowu here, and she and I always have these conversations, and she's the one who's pushed me to start to have the sex talk with my 10-year-old at the time. So she has some views around it. I have Shegu Omoba here as well. He is a father of, actually, do you know most of the people here, they're all fathers of boys or mothers of boys. So I guess I would bring, I know most times when we're talking about sex talk, we're mostly focused on the girl child. So I think we should be thinking about it a bit more. So I want us to sort of have discussions, and I would like to know what your opinions are as to when we should be talking to the child, both the boy child and the girl child, and the reasons why. So Shegwomoba has they run a youth camp. He also pastors a church, and he has three strapling boys um, from age 20, no, 18. How old is Ayolu now? Is he 20 yet?
Ayolu,
Yes.
Ayolu is 22, going 23.
Oh, wow. Okay. So from 40 to 23. And so Anne is a doctor, so she's going to give us some public health expertise from there as well as being a mother of a girl and two boys. And um, Bayo is a lawyer and a father of two boys. So he's going to, I'm not sure where he's gone to, but he'll be showing his face in the conversation, and he'll be telling us from the viewpoint, from a legal standpoint, and also from a father of two boys, and he has a lot of nieces. So when we should be having those conversations and why. So I would who would like to go first? Okay, it's ladies first. So I'll let
Exactly.
so oh, and before we start fully, Ronke is on the admin side. So if we have any questions from Facebook, I think something happened to our Instagram because I my infinite wisdom decided to have a go at something, and I've crashed something there. So if you have any questions on Facebook in our groups, Ronke will be looking through, and maybe we can bring it up and discuss it while we're there. So yes. So Dr. Anne, how would you answer that question and why?
Okay, so let me get you. The question is that, and when should we start to talk about sex with our children? That's it. Hello, Lola.
Yes.
That's the question I'm starting with. Okay. So for me, as a mother, and also now as a public health expert, I would say from the time that they understand what you're saying and the time that they can talk and the time that they begin to know their bodies and touch their bodies, and that would probably be maybe from age. I think someone needs to be on mute. Are you able?
Um, I think that might be Bayo changing his access. Okay.
Okay. Hello, Baya. If you could be on mute because it's a bit noisy. The
I
background.
think they've done that now.
I've actually been muted all the time, so it wasn't from me. Good morning, everybody.
Morning. Good morning. Good
But
morning.
we'd like to see your face, please. So we're the only four allowed to show our faces.
Okay. Okay, so as I was saying, from the time that you know that a child is aware of his or her body, yeah, we can see by all right. So for me, all right. So I'll probably say from the age of 2, we could say 18 months. It depends on how the child has caught on. And I say this when I mean sex education. Let's say sexual health education, not sex education, because that can be misleading. So I'll refer to it as sexual health, education. And we start simply by talking about the body parts, letting the children know the names of their body parts, because a lot of times we call this for instance the penis. A lot of people will call it, oh, your PP, your tutu, all those names. I mean, growing up, yes, we're going to
As is the dot. We call as our dot. But he came up with the name himself.
So to demystify this thing and to make it easier as you go along, just call it what it is. Because, as they grow up, once they are comfortable with calling a penis, and they are comfortable with calling a vagina, a lot of times it's like, it's such a big word, you shouldn't call it, oh, your bum. No, it's a vagina. Let them know that it is called a vagina, and let them know that it is called a penis, and let them know that it is, precious and sacred, and, it belongs to them, and it shouldn't be fiddled with. That is the first, for me, the first basis of sexual health education, letting them know the names of their body parts, and to know those body parts that are only, that should not be touched by anybody. Don't let anybody touch it, and you cannot touch anybody else's own. So for me, that is the bedrock. And then as they grow older,
so what age?
From 18 months, 2 years, as long as at that point already, because the world is not as naive, or as what's it called now, as good as we would like to believe. We have sexual predators that are predating on even infants. It's absurd. I mean, you hear stories and you're like wondering, is this person normal? So you want your child to be aware from that age, as long as they are aware, as immediately that they start touching. Children, I've forgotten the age now, but especially for boys, they start to touch their penis even before they turn 1. It's just a phase. So as they begin to do that, let them know what it is, and let them know that nobody can touch theirs, and that they cannot touch other people's own. They cannot even touch their siblings' own. And so they have to report if a sibling touches them there, before you even begin to talk of maybe your childminder or your housekeeper or your nanny, to talking about somebody else, outside the home or within the home. Because if you look back, especially for us, our generation, for people who grew up in the 70s, in the 80s, a lot of things happen. So I always tell Lola that if you take 10 women, you take a list of 10 women, there's a possibility that 9 out of 10 women of our age have had one or more issue of either child molestation. When they were children, were either molested or abused or harassed, sexually. And so we have to be really, really aware and conscious of it. And because of that, we have to inform our children even from the early ages. And then as they grow older and older, then you begin to expatiate further. I mean, I have a 4-year-old who asked me, Mommy, I'm trying to grow my penis, because she has older brothers. She's the only one who has a vagina, and she's saying she wants to. I had to have a conversation with her. She cannot have a penis. She only has a vagina, and that's what girls have. And,
so that means what you're saying now is that we need to empower them with information
absolutely
that can protect them right from, I
yes.
guess, essentially birth.
Yes, and that are age appropriate, for age.
So this is with regards to protection now.
Yes.
Protection from having sex before they are ready for sex.
No. This is more about self-awareness, to
Okay.
know themselves, to know their bodies, to know the private parts of their body that should not be explored or opened or exposed to anybody else apart from themselves.
Okay,
Good.
so let me pass the mic on to and anybody out there that is listening, please type in any questions you might have for the panelists, and we could brainstorm on that as well, because right now nobody seems to know the right answers to this question. I guess we're trying to give you enough information for you to be able to make the decision for what suits your own family. And in creating that environment where it's safe for them to talk about it and express themselves, because I do believe that gives them some kind of control, and if they have a safe space to discuss it, then protection also comes in. So if you have any questions or you want to discuss or you want us to discuss, you can put it in the chat, but we're going to try to keep this to 30 minutes, but we've been known to go over 30 minutes because the conversation keeps getting more and more interesting as we open the mic up. So I want to pass the mic to Bayo Ademiluyi, and what are your views on this topic?
Good morning again. Well, it's as I said to you yesterday. It's for some of us, it's a bit of a, I don't want to say it's a difficult conversation. I can't remember having this conversation with my own parents, but I understand how important it is in this current climate to have the conversation even earlier than we would have had it when we were growing up. So I haven't had it with mine, but I'm hoping that over this summer, I can have it with my older son. And
how old is it? What age range?
11 going on 12.
So how would you? So I do think Dr. Lou is a bit extreme about when she has her own conversations. So that's
okay. Let me put it like this: they've had conversations in school. They've had people come in and have talks on this topic. So it's not a new thing to them, right? Yeah. So about your body parts and people not touching you inappropriately and all the rest of it. So they're well aware of all those things. But as a parent-child conversation, I haven't had it.
What of the school of thought that says that if you control the type of information they have around it, then they know a bit better? I want to pass that on to Segun Moba to see, since he's worked with a lot more children in over 50 odd years, to give us some insight as to maybe from the children's point of view, with regards to when they would have liked their parents to talk to them about it. I know when I started my period, literally my mom was like, you're going to be able to have babies now. So essentially, the sex talk was very clinical, because my mom is a doctor. So it's like, you use a condom to prevent pregnancy. And that was the whole conversation. So what have you heard that the other children out there might have liked to have heard about, Mr. Moba?
Thank you. Good morning, everybody, once again. Okay, Lola, from your question about the children, quite some of them, from what I've heard, like to have heard it much earlier. But now again, you have to understand, why did they want to have to know it much earlier, right? Now, I found out that for some of them, they wanted to know much earlier so that they can know how to appease their desires.
I'm going to stay in your study. in a Zoom
And so
meeting.
it's not so much as in how to protect themselves, and it was about how to appease their desires, how to get away with it, right? And I believe that was a lot more, again, having to do with the society we live in today and what information is available to them. If I want to take that back a little to the to Anne's opinion, which I find very good, because I look back at myself, because we were all children before we became adults and fathers and parents, right? And I looked about myself, and I looked at my age about the time I was first aware, right? And I'm trying to buttress Anne's point. When I looked back, I found out that it was something I was aware of even before I was 5 years old. And for someone of my age, I'm thinking about when I was 5 years old. I mean, I'm still young, but you can imagine how many decades ago that is, right? You can imagine how many decades ago that is. And I'm talking about the time I had my first experience. Now, when Anne was talking, she was talking about, even you have to be particular who touches you, where your siblings and stuff and all like that. And I was surprised to find out that I didn't even know how I became aware. I tried to remember what made me aware. I can't remember any visual. I can't remember any visual. But I just realized that it was actually at that age. And then we were playing the mommy daddy game with friends. You know what I'm talking about. We're playing the mommy daddy game.
That's
We were
like
kids.
yes.
We were kids, and at that age, probably because of where I grew up, right? We knew we had our 10 toys and stuff like that. And so with what my parents are, because this will happen in my house, and what my parents have provided for us, we were playing mommy and daddy, and we were in the tent and doing what mommy and daddy do. Now, when I grew much older, I asked myself, how did I know? When I grew older, I looked back and I saw that at this point, I was just about 5 years old. Now, I tried for so many times to remember any visual that made me know what I was doing. What did I see? What did I hear? At that time, we were not as much developed as the children of this age, right? So I couldn't know, was it I heard something or was it something I saw? Till today, I can't remember. So I believe it should be as early as possible. And then even at that early, children want to appease that desire. They want to satisfy that desire and be safe. Now, you don't know the consequences at that time, right? So from what I've heard, like going back to the last question about when do these kids want to know, they don't mind to know so early because they have some things they feel in their body, in their system, and they feel like, why can't I? So they want to know early enough. And like I said, you also have to know the motive. What is the reason? Why do you want to know early enough? I mean, it's good, like what Anne said, for health education, which is just perfect for sexual health education, and then to be able to protect yourself. And then for us is to be able to let them know how to stay safe. Now, when I mean how to stay safe, how to stay safe without practicing, because you can't be 100% safe.
Thank you very much for that insight. And I would also then now, I think I did cut in when Mr. Demili was talking. So I want to put him on the spot again and just ask him, how does he think he's going to be able to have this first conversation because I'm sure there are lots of people, because since I've put it out, a lot of people have been asking me, I'm going to listen because I need to learn. So a lot of people want to do this, but it's so uncomfortable. So it was Anne that pushed me to have the first conversation with my daughter, who is 10. And I think what really made me do it, yes, so I was like Bayo as well, saying that they've heard about it, I've checked with them, they know that stranger danger, if anybody comes near them, they should shout. That was who I was. And then I watched my daughter playing with the neighbor's son, albeit very, very innocently. But when I was 10, I wasn't as developed as that, and it got me thinking that, I need to let her understand that at certain age, you can't be playing certain games anymore with the opposite sex. And well, I guess now there's also same sex, which I'm not sure I want to discuss on this forum. But to be able to let her understand that. So, Bayo, when or how do you think you're now going to be able to have the conversation? Because what I did was buy a book. I bought a book, I gave it to her to read, even though the book had a lot of information I didn't want her to know. So I stapled that and I made her promise she will open the stapled parts. So I guess I still, but I did have some conversation around it before I gave her the book. And luckily, they've also started talking in school about reproduction. So I used that to be able to start the conversation and open the conversation. But the honest truth is that I've just said there's something called the sexual part, which is your vagina, and the boy has his own sexual part. I have not told her how the baby is formed. I'm not sure I'm ready for that conversation. So over to you, Bayo. I'm putting you on the spot now, since you and I are probably on the same level. Okay, maybe I'm a little better than you. How would you have the conversation with your boys? I guess if I had boys also, I probably wouldn't be having the conversation at all, to be honest. Because the problem with them is the girl's problem if there's a baby. So Bayo, yes, when would you how would you do it?
Okay, first and foremost, you appear to have forgotten that your second child is a boy.
A small boy, very small.
A small boy. He's not going to remain a small boy. In a twinkling of an eye, he will be a big boy.
He's 5 years old.
Can you imagine? 5 years. You know what
the pastor said about when his own exploration started? 5.
Yeah, because that's another thing, because he always seems to have, so I mean, I'm a girl, I grew up with sisters, so we did a lot of things. And I found it so strange because honestly, every time he wakes up, he has, oh
God. So he has what?
I cannot say.
We're putting people on the spot here. I'm just. No. Is it that he has nightmares? I'm just curious.
No, Bayo, just go on.
Give us the medical term for what he has in the morning.
I don't understand.
Because I never would have thought and he's been having it since he was 2. I never would have thought.
Normal, Lola, it's normal.
No, I had to Google it. I found out that it was normal. But these are some of the things I want to at Health Boxes to help demystify, so that people don't start to because I think if everybody understands what is going on, the child body system, them ourselves as parents, then we can be understanding a bit more and then be able to have the conversations, I think. So Bayo, I think, see, if I was white right now, I'll be red. So Bayo, I'm passing the mic over to you. How are you going to do it? How do you think? Have you been thinking about it?
To be honest, I don't think there are any hard and fast rules. What I do not want to do is formalize the conversation too much, as in sit down, we're going to talk, this is a boy, this is a girl. No, I want there to be a certain I don't want to trivialize it, but I want it to be a casual conversation. Maybe something would happen, or would see something, maybe not on television, or somebody would say something, and then I can just use that as a catalyst to kicking off the conversation. So right now, I can't tell you exactly how I think it's going to go, but it could just be along the lines of, okay, how is school? You know, how are the other children? How are you interacting with children? What's this? You know, your even though they both say no and they're at that age where they think girls are bad, but they will soon quickly grow out of it and know that girls are actually good for them. But I think the important thing is to get the information across in a simplified manner. Because if you start talking clinically, this is what a boy has, what a girl has, if the boy does this. So, and as you said, there are books, and there's other literature, but as you have also observed, the literature tends to go much further than we would want them to be exposed to. And depending on the source of the literature, sometimes they even investigate the concept of same-sex relationships, which, whether you choose to hide your head in the sand or not, it's a conversation that you have to have so that they understand that it's going on. I personally think it's not as prevalent as the community would want us to believe, because I was saying to my wife the other day, every series you watch on anywhere now has a same-sex couple. So it's like they're pushing the narrative so that people get the impression that they are a lot more than I think they actually are. But whether the numbers are in the hundreds of millions or in the tens of thousands is, for me, not really the point. The point is to make them understand that this is what happens and your own viewpoint on it. In as much as I try to be a liberal parent in a lot of things, I'm also a traditional parent. And at the risk of offending anybody's sensibilities on this call, it's not a lifestyle that I subscribe to or I would want my children to participate in. So we would have that conversation so you know right from the start that we try not to do that in our house. So yeah, I believe that's answered your question in the sense that I can't tell you how or when. It could just be sitting on a train and, okay, starting off about school, or we could be teasing his younger brother about some girl in his class who's supposed to have a crush on. And whilst he's busy teasing his younger brother, we could just switch it up and be like, you won't call, and then take it from there. So
you're only going to have the conversation with just one?
Oh, definitely. I personally think it would be a more productive conversation if I had it with them separately, because if I have it with them together, they could start, I don't know, maybe joking and laughing and, sort of making or attempting to make a mockery of the whole thing. So if it's just both of us, and you can see Daddy's serious face, then you know that it is the conversation that I expect you to concentrate on. So after I've had it with them separately, then we could have a couple of, for want of a better expression, group sessions. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Bayo. I'm going to hold you accountable to having the conversation before the end of summer. At least the initial one.
The initial, for me, I don't think that would be an issue at all. I think it's imperative that he spent a whole year in boarding school already. So it's a conversation that I think has to be had sooner rather than later. So yeah.
Okay, so the
We're on
next
it.
question would then now be how much information, considering the fact that I personally, and I think I'll direct that to Anne, I personally want to preserve some sense of innocence for a while. Some, I honestly would like to have that because I know I didn't know anything until I got to maybe like Form 4, Form 5, Form 6, maybe Form 6 probably. And it was nice to live in bliss. and but I know that we can't have that now. So to what level of details should we be going, and is it appropriate to, what are your viewpoints from a public health perspective? And I would also touch and part of the reason why I'm asking this is because we did a survey of some children for a youth for tackle hub, which we're setting up in health boxes for youths, and Shegun Mother's youth camp, which is Activate Youth Camp, which I'm very a strong part of, was also part of it, and we got a lot of feedback back with from the children saying they didn't feel safe at home, and they needed, and these were children up to the age of 23, 24, I believe. And a lot of them were saying that they weren't safe at home, and because of also this issue of of being exposed to sexual predators, I guess we can be calling them now at this time. So how much information should we be sharing to our children and loved ones around us?
Right. Thank you, Lola, and thank you to Mr. Moba and Bayo for all that they have shared so far. Before I start on how much information that we should be sharing with them, I'd like to talk briefly on what can help, because I see the very reluctance, and I understand it. And I think that it is because we are looking at sexual education from the viewpoint of what we know. And so you don't want to go out just talking to them about sex and the different complications because you are viewing it from your own perspective. But when it comes to educating a child, children are innocent. I mean, it is what you tell them or what they see or what they hear that they begin to build on. So I first want to demystify it and say that, look, let it not be something to shy away from, and change your perspective on how you see sexual health education. Maybe not, that's why I said, let's not talk about it as sex, but let's talk about it as sexual reproductive health. So if, for instance, you had started from the beginning educating your child about their body parts and teaching them that, okay, you know what, this is the limit at which you go in allowing anybody come close to you, exposing your body parts, and to respect other people's body parts and not touch them in certain places, you have already started. And when you start that way, especially if you have younger ones now, starting, from 2, as they grow older, by 5, they are knowing better. Okay, yes, why do I have a vagina and then my brother has a penis? Why can't I grow a penis like I see from my brothers? And you go further to explain to them. You're also helping them to be self-aware. And then when they begin now to start talking about, because your own children, you may bring them up in a certain way that they are not exposed to sexual activity and everything, surrounding sex. But they are going to school, they have friends, they have people who may not, they're mixing with other children whose parents may not be as observant, and as careful as you are. And we are beginning to see children exposed to pornography even from the age of 5, especially in our world now. I mean, it was there already during our own world, but we didn't have, and during our own time growing up. But, the children didn't have access to the internet. They didn't have access to phones and tablets the way we do.
But we had
Yes.
that the sexy man.
Yes.
Which
But
really, if you think about it, that was quite a pornographic magazine that we had access to and nobody really told us.
interestingly, I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh my goodness, yes.
So you
So
see,
our driver used to read it and he used to pass it on to us. God, what was the magazine called? But it was Dowda the sexy guy, and he always had ended with having sex with somebody. With
It was called Dowda the Sexy Guy.
oh, it
I
was
think
called
it was called Dowda the Sexy Guy. And it's amazing how Anne had referred to innocence. And we read it, but we read it with an innocent mind. So as we got older, we kind of knew what was going on, but we didn't look at it as pornography. But with a more intelligent mindset now, it was pornography. It was cartoon pornography, you know. And it's about the way your mind is colored. And I'll give just a very quick example. Before I went abroad, I would go to markets like Balogun with my mother, and I would see, especially Igbo traders, walking around holding hands. And I never thought anything of it. It's just something that they do as a matter of course. And I now traveled and came back. And now when I go to the market and I see these Igbo traders holding hands, and I'm just, you know, I think deep down I know there's nothing there because you can't have just so many gay Igbo men roaming around central Lagos. But you're right, your mindset, and if you have an innocent mindset, which a lot of children don't have now, as you rightly said, we came into the age of sexual health education or awareness much later. But if you hear the stories that professionals in the industry would give you when they come and give these talks, you'd be amazed at what 7-year-olds are getting up to. And by the time they are 10, 11, some of them are professionals. But
really sexually active, yes.
yeah, so anyway.
yes. Thank you, Bayo, for bringing that up. So continuing with what I was saying as to how to, this demystify this sexual health education. So talking about building up on what I have said again, you may also want to start from what they know. So another good way is to ask them, just when you know that, okay, you want to have this conversation with them, you can start with what they know. So you can ask them, so have you heard anything about sex? What do you know that sex is? You can put them on the spot and start with what they know. Another way to go about it is start from a scientific point of view. Tell them what a penis does, what it is used for, how do babies come about. So you don't need to make it bogus. I mean, just from what, depending on the age that they are, what it means. For instance, when I was talking to my children about sex, I did talk about, I told them that, it's what you do. It is what adults do. Adults who, and my husband was trying to specify that adults who are married are the ones. So depending on your moral beliefs, on your religious beliefs, on your religious settings, that may also inform how you put it across, to your children, especially if you don't want them to engage in premarital sex. I mean, that is subjective. But really to tell them, okay, it is what only, because I remember when I had that conversation, my 7-year-old, he asked me, what happens if, you want to do it? I mean, what is the consequence of doing it if, yes, before you're an adult? And I know that it was an innocent question because he's a very inquisitive child. And I was taken aback by that question. But I had to answer. I said, because you're not ready for the consequences. What happens is there's a lot of emotional responsibility. And again, your partner can get pregnant, whoever it is. If it's a woman, a girl can get pregnant. a boy would have to become responsible, be a father, and that means that you have to start working, you have to provide for the child, you have to. By the time I explained it to him, you could see. I mean, I think that he got the message. Do you understand? But if I never had that conversation, I would not have had the opportunity to explain it to him. And that is the danger of leaving sexual health education for you to the school and to other children. Because if you, like Lola said at the beginning, when you are the one giving the education and you are making them know, you are controlling the narrative. You are helping them you are shaping their values from the beginning. You are introducing it to them, and they can always come back to you. That means that you have given them the avenue to always come back to you, to ask those questions, to discuss those issues around that, to discuss what their friends said that is contrary to what you have told them. Because whether you like it or not, if you're not discussing it with them, once a child is 7, they are hearing about this from their classmates, they are reading it in their, I make my children read a lot, books. In some of these books, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Dog Diaries, all these things, they see guys, they talk about kissing, they talk about girlfriends. They ask me all of these questions. If I wasn't having that conversation with them, they probably would be having fantasies in their mind, or feeding their knowledge from what they hear from people and from things that they're watching on cartoons. How much of scrutiny can you do? There's a limit. But when you set the standard, then you are setting off your children from starting from a good foundation. So that's why, more than anything, please don't shy away from having these conversations. I have simplified it. You may start with what they know, start from a scientific point of view, or you may even start with, they may be having a conversation. They may say something that is not right, or they may say something that, one of their friends said, or they may ask you a question. That may be your cue to have those conversations with them. Now, going to the question on how much information do you give? It depends on their age and what they are exposed to. Now, I've had to have conversations with my 9-year-old and my 7-year-old about pornography, because I'm seeing that a lot of, in fact, if you work with people who work with children in churches or in social services, you'd be surprised, the things that children are exposed to now, and then now we've gone to the digital space. COVID has forced our children to be online. They do games. They are always going on YouTube to see different things. There's so many exposures that they may have. So talk to them about pornography. Let them know that it is not good. Let them know that it is psychologically damaging. Have this okay, now, for instance, we're talking about the Dowda book, as Bayo and Lola talked about the Dowda book. That was when we were, less than 10. Now they have more than the Dowda book. They have videos and all of that. I've had people talk about how their children, just how they saw pornographic stuff on their child's tablet. In school, some of the teachers will complain to you about some of the things that these children talk about. So again, going back, I always forget, going back to how much information. The information that you give is dependent on how old they are and how exposed that they are. But more or less, any child, I should say it here now, that any child that is above 7 should know what sex is and should know what pornography is. And you should teach them how to avoid these things and the vices that are there.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ann. I think yes, we've gone over, but I think some of the people online might have some questions. So if you do, can you unmute your mic and just ask the question? Let's see if we can trash it out from, I guess, medical experience or years experience or gender, child experience standpoint. Because like I said, this is to be able to empower you to be able to have more conversations with your children as opposed to shying away from it. That at least I know for sure we should do. So does anybody have any question out there? I think we have a few. Okay, Miriam has put her hand up. Yes, please, carry on, Miriam.
Hello, good afternoon, good morning, everybody. I noticed that the conversation really was for younger children, at least most of you who shared. I just had one comment, which I think Anne touched on just before she finished talking, that it's really not a conversation, it's conversations. And I have a 16 and 22-year-old, and I'm still having those conversations. So, like you said, it depends on the age of the child, how exposed the child is. But you start as early as, like you said, sexual education. From when the child is 2, you just start educating the child, and it's conversations you have. I notice a number of us blush when we want to, talk about certain things. But the reality is that you just have to talk about it. And for the better part of it, I know a lot of our husbands or men believe that, they should do the talking to the sons. And as a woman, as a mother, I'm very happy for them too. But I've realized from my personal experience that my husband doesn't really, address it as he really should. Sometimes, I don't know whether it's at the back of their head that, yes, he should be a man or he should be a boy. But there are certain things that I believe that women have to jump in on and not just leave it to the men when it's to do with talking to the boys. Thankfully, I have a husband who speaks to his sons and daughters, and neither one of us shy away from it. So it's a tag team. I kind of try and fill in the gap. So what I don't want to what I'm too embarrassed to talk about or whatever, I get him to do it. But the thing is that we are both in agreement that it has to be done. And like you said, it varies. I mean, I've talked about pornography, we've talked about premarital sex, the whole works. And it's amazing because at each time we've spoken to our children, it's never been a surprise for them, as in they've never been like, as for when I was their age, a lot of these things are like, wow, we never heard of it before, but it's all out there, as we know. And so it's just reinforcing the family values, we're Christians, our Christian values, and what is right and wrong, and being realistic. I mean, we have conversations as real as we know you have friends, or we know at this stage it might be the norm for people to be having premarital sex and doing XYZ, but you really just have to take the bull by the horns and talk to them. And it's like I said, conversations. It's not a particular time or a particular place. You just have those conversations. Be as open as possible because it's really just out there.
Thank you very much, Miriam. To touch on what she said, I do get feed, or should I say, because I work with youth quite a bit, and apparently there's something out there now where they have nude parties, apparently, which is where they go for parties and I guess everybody takes their clothes off, at some point, to show piercings, tattoos, and or whatnot, I guess. So that is also scary for me. In not just from an ethical or moral standpoint, but also as a pharmacist because of all the. I mean, it's obviously then now needs for us to have the question or the conversations with them around consent when you're having sex, because if you put yourself in that kind of position, do you understand what consent is before it leads to rape? And then, of course, STDs and how to protect yourself from STDs. So I guess the conversation for the older people, older children exposed to having sex has to have the element of STDs and consent and I don't know what else. I mean, I try to advocate for abstinence, but it is, yes, very difficult and more probably near impossible. But it's all with if you're a Christian or if you're a Muslim as well, because I do know a lot of Muslims, because we've had some calls on health boxes. We've had a few calls with the guys actually calling because they want to abstain, but the girl would rather know before they get married if so there's also that societal pressures that could come in. So there's just so much that I guess it also then now touches on character building as well. So having those conversations should also help with that. that's my, I mean, I'm scared of having a 13-year-old. I'm still on 11 because I think the world is such a scary place out there. But I do agree with Miriam that the conversation needs to be a continuous thing. Mr. Moba, do you have anything else to add? Because you do have 22-year-old, 23-year-old son.
Yeah, and what I like to add is going from what Anne said, that it's important as we discuss this topic that we harp on the consequences. As we harp on the consequences and they realize the potential, I mean, the negative potential of their outcome, I think it's another thing that can help them to hold back. You know, as much as we divulge a lot of information, and divulging a lot of information, giving them a lot of big information, again, like Anne said, you have to know what you're telling them and why you're telling them what you're telling them. And I'm not surprised that you talked about her son that asked that question, because right now, at any age, when boys want to know about that, is about how to ease themselves of the pressures they go through. Okay? And for some of them, it's normal, it's natural for it to happen, right? But then, what do you do about it? So when you know the consequences, even if they might not understand immediately, with time, they will, and we just pray that they don't get into any situation that now makes them come into that reality. You don't want them to get into that situation. Like I was sharing with Lola a few days ago about a case that we're currently handling about a 12-year-old guy and all like that. And he was told the consequences and he said, well, he doesn't think it can happen. But then something suddenly happens to him. What he didn't do, he was accused of doing it. And that was, I mean, a rude shock for him. It was a shock therapy that now made him to become sober. Because at their age, they're already having boyfriend, girlfriend, and the girls are really going after them. And the guys really need to know what to do, how to be cautious. And if you fall for this, these are the consequences. So I think if we harp more on the consequences, it will probably help them to hold back, and we would save them, you know, from future experiences that they will not be happy about.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other comments or questions? Has anybody been able to map out a strategy for their ongoing conversation? So that's my consulting hat. I always have to have a plan. So on how to execute and solve a problem, because for me this is some level of problem solving. So I don't know, it's just, I think Anne unmuted. Did you have something?
Yeah. I wanted to say something because Mr. Moba's comment reminded me of something I missed out. Another reason why sexual health education is important is because we need to teach our children to respect other people's spaces and other people's bodies. You know, especially it may not be, maybe the judicial system may not be as robust, but knowing that our children are going to Canada, they're going, I mean, people are relocating and all of that, we need to educate our children about being safe around the opposite sex, whether you're a boy or you're a girl. Know your limit. You cannot touch anybody in a certain way. You cannot say certain things. I mean, things that can be, you know, as construed as sexual molestation, sexual harassment that they may find innocent. And so this is another reason why we have to have those conversations with them, because they may not know. I mean, a boy maybe who is used to pulling a girl, he's used to pulling his sister, you know, or touching them in certain places that is not a big deal to him. Is a big deal, you know, when you are in a social setting or when you are outside your household. And so we need to also hamper on that. For the girls, and for the boys, not just for the boys alone now, because again, you know, as Mr. Omoba said, now we're beginning to have young ladies, young girls, you know, accusing, you know, boys of things that they didn't do. And then again, vice versa, we have boys still, this culture of, you know, harassing women, you know, touching them inappropriately and all of that. We have to hammer on that as well.
Thank you very much. I think I've taken a lot of your time. Thank you for being patient. Everybody has stayed on the call for an hour. I'm just realizing. So I'm hoping everybody's had a good a good framework to where to start from. And if you have and you'd like to share with the community, please follow us on Instagram or Facebook, and share your comments on there, because I'm sure it will help somebody out there. The Instagram handle is at healthboxesng, and this recording will be put on our YouTube page for those who want to go back or share, because we found it quite interesting. Thank you very much once again for your time, and God bless you. Have a great week ahead. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Lola. Thank you, Anne and Bayo. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure.